Okay, imagine this for a second. The world you know, it's gone. The money in your wallet is worthless. The stores are empty. The laws don't matter anymore. Everything just stops. What do you do? Well, today we're looking at a fascinating and pretty sobering blueprint for exactly that: how to rebuild civilization from the ground up.
So, let's just dive right in. The entire 500-page document we're exploring is designed to answer this one single question. What actually happens when the complex, fragile systems we all depend on— I'm talking about currency, supply chains, the very trust holding it all together— what happens when they just break?
According to this blueprint, a societal collapse isn't just one big, chaotic event. No, it's more like a predictable, terrifying domino effect. First, the currency fails. Your money becomes paper. When that happens, the supply chains grind to a halt. When people can't get food or medicine, they lose all faith in their institutions. That's the legitimacy failure. Then law enforcement pulls back, and a fire hose of misinformation turns an already bad situation into total chaos. It's a feedback loop, a death spiral that reinforces itself.
And this chart, man, it just nails the core problem. When things get really bad, the political system starts offering things like slogans, factions, and ideology. But what do people actually need? Food, water, safety, a way to solve problems without killing each other? You see the disconnect? The system stops serving reality at the exact moment reality matters most.
So if the old system, the old operating system, if you will, is fundamentally broken, what do you replace it with? This blueprint doesn't just suggest a few fixes. It proposes a completely new OS for society. And it's not about new politicians or different parties. It's about changing the fundamental logic of how we get things done together.
Let's break that shift down. You're moving away from the old logic of politics, which is all about representation and rhetoric. The new logic is all about service, based on direct participation and, actual operations. Authority gets replaced by stewardship. And maybe the biggest shift of all, ideology gets replaced by hard evidence.
And that leaves us to this. This right here is the single, non-negotiable core doctrine of the entire system. It changes everything. It doesn't matter how great your speech is, how charismatic you are, or how many followers you have. In this system, if you can't prove it, it doesn't count, full stop.
And that completely flips the script on how we think about power and legitimacy. See, in the old system, legitimacy is declared. You win an election, you take power, you're in charge. But in this new system, legitimacy has to be accumulated. You earn it day by day, piece by piece, by actually delivering real services, by making your process visible to everyone, and, this is crucial, by admitting when you're wrong and fixing it.
Okay, so how do you actually build this thing? The blueprint says you start with the most basic materials you have: truth and trust. But, and this is the key, it doesn't treat them like fuzzy, abstract feelings. It treats them like engineering materials, like steel and concrete.
So here, trust is treated like a utility. It's infrastructure. It's defined as a measurable property of the system. Basically, it's predictability. High trust means you and I can work together without needing a bunch of lawyers and contracts and guards. It makes everything cheaper, faster, and more efficient. Low trust is expensive. High trust is wealth.
So how do you build trust when everything has been shattered? The blueprint has a really clever answer. You use something called trust objects. Think about it this way. Instead of a leader saying, "Trust me," they have to say, "Here's the budget entry. Check it yourself." That budget entry, that's a trust object. It's a recorded fact that anyone can go and verify for themselves. It replaces the need for blind faith with the ability to see the proof.
And how is this new society organized? Well, it's not a top-down pyramid. It's built from the bottom up, using these small, self-sufficient units called cells. They're like Lego bricks. Each cell of about 12 to 50 people is a complete, tiny version of the system. It can deliver services, keep records, and solve its own problems. And because they're modular, the whole structure is incredibly resilient. If one cell fails, the rest of the system just keeps on going.
Okay, so what does all this actually look like for the average person living through this? What's the user experience of this new system? Well, it's probably not what you're thinking. It's not about laws and legislators, it's about getting things done.
When you're rebuilding from zero, where do you even start? The blueprint is very clear. You follow the laws of physics, not politics. There's a strict order of operations. First, you establish safety, because without safety, nothing else matters. Then you secure the absolute basics for life: food, water, sanitation. Only when those are stable can you even think about moving up the stack to things like shelter, health, and information. You can't argue with this order. It just is.
And how do you deliver each of those layers? You use these standardized, documented service modules.
Think of them like open-source recipes or instruction manuals for getting critical things done. A food security module, for instance, isn't just a vague promise to feed people. It's a specific, documented set of procedures, roles, and metrics to make sure people are fed reliably. And here it is. This might be the most radical idea in the entire blueprint. This system, the consistent, reliable, and verifiable delivery of essential services, is the government. The real government isn't the building where people make speeches. The real government is the system that makes sure the water is clean and the community is safe. That's it. Everything else is just noise.
But wait a minute. This all sounds great in theory, but what about people? We're messy. We're driven by ego and greed and a thirst for power. How does a system like this stop itself from being corrupted and captured by the same old human failings? The answer isn't hoping for better people. It's better architecture.
You don't rely on finding perfect, selfless leaders. Instead, you build a kind of social immune system right into the code. So, for the threat of a charismatic leader who might become a dictator, the defense is mandatory role rotation and strict term limits. Worried about shadowy donors pulling the strings? The defense is total financial transparency and public audits. Afraid of secrecy and lies? The defense is a public ledger where every major decision is recorded for all to see. It's designed to make corruption really, really hard.
This all leads to a totally different idea of what a leader is. The system doesn't have rulers, it has stewards. So what's the difference? Well, a ruler commands outcomes. They say, do this because I said so. A steward, on the other hand, guards the process. Their job is to protect the system we've all agreed on and make sure it runs fairly. They don't accumulate power for themselves, they distribute responsibility throughout the network.
And that's really the big question this whole blueprint leaves us with. What if the secret to a strong, resilient civilization isn't about finding better leaders? What if it's about building a better system? A system built on verifiable proof instead of political promises. One so transparent and accountable that it actually works, no matter who's in charge. An operating system for society, designed to survive reality.